Harrison smacked my shoulder. "Stop staring at me like you seen a ghost. Give me that knife. You gotta put them on like this." I watched Harrison's clumsy fingers slice off thick pieces of onion and reach for his feet. But his back was too stiff to bend far enough down. He cursed loudly and said, "You help me out here, child, and be quick about it." I did what he told me, scrubbed the strong-smelling onions all over his dark, knotted feet as if I was polishing the legs of Miss Catherine's parlor chairs, not fixing to run away. My fingers stung and my eyes burned so I couldn't even see through all the tears. "Ain't right to run off," I said under my breath. Lily had always told me that running off was the surest way to bring the worst kind of trouble on my head. Harrison straightened up and waved his hand toward the direction of the house. "Go on back to Master and Miss Catherine, then," he said sharply. "I ain't stopping you." An owl hooted in the distance. I looked up at Harrison's face. His eyes were closed, and he didn't have any expression at all. "Why are you running away?" I asked. "Die one way, die soon enough." "But they gonna send dogs after you. Young Mass Seth told me about the dogs that can hunt down runaways anywhere, even 2 days after they gone. Even if they run through water, he told me. What if they chase you down? You're gonna get all torn up by them dogs." "Why you think I brung these onions, Samuel? To keep them kinds of dogs away," Harrison snapped. He stared at me and pressed his lips together. "I know what I'm doing. I lived long enough on this here earth to know what I'm doing when I decide to do something. You hear?" He was getting angry now. "You just make up your mind. Either you run away or you stay. But I'm going, and the devil's dogs can drag my old gray body back arm by arm, leg by leg, if they want to." He glared at me. "You running off with me or not, Samuel?" "Why you want to leave Lily and me?" I pleaded. "'Cause I does," Harrison finished loudly. "I'm afraid of you going, Harrison," I said, taking a swipe at the tears, which were spilling out of my eyes, even though nobody was dying, and Lily would be ashamed of me again. I could see nothing but terrible pictures in my mind. Mean bloodhounds being let loose on poor old Harrison, or Master laying open his back with lightning stripes, pouring salt in each stripe. That's what the masters did to runaways. Terrible, unspeakable things, Lily would say. "Tell you what, I got an idea." Harrison opened up his tow sack. "Why don't you put your fear in this here sack, Samuel, and I carry it for you all the way north. And then, when us get there safe and sound, say I let it out, and it can float straight up into the free sky and be gone from us forever. How about that?" Harrison put his wide, silly grin on his face and waved his arm at the night sky. "Whoo-wee! There it goes! All them things that been scaring the life out of poor old Samuel all this time." "I ain't scared," I say. "Know what the free sky gonna look like, Samuel?" Harrison kept on. "Big blue summer sky going from one end of the north to the other. Imagine that. And black folks, they get to fly all around that sky. Don't that sound like something to see?" I looked down at my feet. Harrison picked up the tow sack. "How far off is north?" I asked low. "Ain't talking no more," he said sharply. "You just gonna start walking with me and find out. I got my mind made up, Samuel." And without another word, Harrison started off into the darkness, his long, skinny legs hobbling and half walk, half run, past the horse barn, past the shadows of the hen house, the corn cribs, through the old apple orchard, around the field hand's cabin, and into Master Hackler's cornfields. I followed him as if I had no more sense than one of young Master's toys being pulled on a string. In my mind, I could see Lily shaking me as hard as she could when she found out, and saying, "How could you have gone and let Harrison run off like that? And you went with him, too? Here, I figured you had more sense in your head than that. I raised you up to know right from wrong. You shamed me and your poor mother both." But Harrison never stopped long enough for me to even get a word in about Lily or turning back. He hurried down after row in the dark fields until I lost count and couldn't have found my way back even if I did turn around. Truth was, in my whole life, I had never gone this far away from anything. I had never been past Master's cornfields, the only thing that would have taken me beyond the cornfield and over the low rolling brown Kentucky hills was a wagon carrying me off to be sold. So the thought of going outside of Master's farm had always sent a shiver through me. Even Lily, old as she was, had never left Master's farm, and the three of her children hadn't either, because they were buried right there in the Negro burying ground past the cornfield field hands' cabins. Only Harrison and the hired field hands had come from somewhere else. When he was young, Harrison had been bought from a Virginia farmer. I recollect I was about old enough to start working the fields when they sold me off. Maybe I was 10 or 11, he had told me, but the only thing Harrison could remember of his old Virginia farm was a pond where he once fished at night, thinking that everyone was asleep, except the master's son caught him. "Never done that again," he'd tell me for the 100th time. "Never done that again." As the sky lightened into gray, everything around us looked strange, like a dream that stirs up things you know with things you don't. The fields we were standing in looked the same as Master's cornfields, but there was a board fence running along its edge, and Master used a split rail. And I saw a barn cat slipping through the corn rows in front of us, but it was gray, with 2 white feet, and our barn cats were all tabby-striped. "Should be finding ourselves a hiding place," Harrison whispered, "before it gets too light." I glanced up at the sky, and the thought of Lily. She'd be coming to the kitchen to get the fire started for cooking breakfast. "Samuel," she'd whisper, opening the door real slow, the way she did every morning. "Just old me in here. You awake yet?" Lily always said it was bad luck to scare a sleeping person out of their dreams, so that's why she kept real quiet. But the truth was, I knew she didn't want us waking Master Hacker, Miss Catherine. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying not to see her calling for me in the dark kitchen, and not knowing I had gone. "Samuel," Harrison said louder, nodding in the direction of the woods, "you go on there and you see if you can find this big tree with a rotted hollow in the middle, and there are 3 limbs low to the ground." "Where?" "Should be right off a ways," Harrison said, pointing. "You go on now while I catch my breath." I shot a glance in the dark. "I never been in them woods before." Harrison glared at me. "Lord almighty! You's gonna earn your salt. You's never gonna earn your salt in this world, Samuel." Flinging the tow sack over his shoulder, he stalked past me. But we hadn't gone more than a stone's throw or 2 when I felt my skin raise up like goose flesh. There was an old maple with 3 limbs close to the ground, a raccoon hollow right in the middle, and a lightning scar running down the side. "Go on," Harrison said, pushing me forward. "There's the hiding place I was just telling you about." I stared at the old tree. How had he known what the tree looked like before we got there? Lily said there were some folks who could foretell things in their minds, things that were about to happen. She believed in witching and spirits for bad things like cows going dry and hailstorms beating down the new corn. But the thought of Harrison using witching and spirits to help us run away put a chill in my blood. I wasn't about to go anywhere near that tree. "What's got hold of you?" said Harrison impatiently. "We're going to get some rest and hide ourselves here. Now, you come along. Like I says, stop being a child." But I stayed where I was and watched Harrison shuffle toward the tree. He took some cups of onion and scattered them in the leaves. "How'd you know about this tree before we got here?" I ventured to ask, drawing a little closer. "You see things before they happen?" Harrison gave me a sharp look. "Don't know where you get them foolish thoughts in your head, Samuel, but you better be leaving most of them here," he said, tapping the top of my head with his finger. "Where they belong, or they gonna get us into trouble, sure enough. Know what I'm saying?" I stared at my feet and stuck the damp leaves, wishing more than anything that I could go back to fixing breakfast with Lily. My mind laid it out on the table. The whole big plate of sizzling fatback and warm corn cakes. Harrison traced his fingers along the black lightning stripe. "If I could foretell the future and the things that were going to happen in my life, you think I would have worn out my bones working for white folks all these years? No, I wouldn't. I'd roll over and die. The day I was born, then. That's what I would have done." Harrison looked over at me. "Truth is," he said, calm as anything, I run off once before, to this very same tree, and that's how I knowed it. I stared wide-eyed at Harrison. Far as I knew, no one on Master Hackler's farm had ever stolen away, especially not Harrison. You run away from Master Hackler? Long, long time ago. From old Master Hackler, way before you were born, Samuel. Harrison shot a hard look at me. And don't go asking me no more questions about it, 'cause I ain't breathing another word. It's something between me and the good Lord, and that's all. Now, you help me get up here on this branch. And without another word, Harrison started climbing into the tree himself. He made me pitch down on all fours so he could step on my back and pull himself up to the lowest branch. I ain't nothing but an old sack of skin and bones, he kept telling me. But I thought he was going to split me in half like a fence rail while he was climbing up. After he settled in with lots of cursing and groaning, I scrambled up to one of the other limbs. We looked like a pair of out-of-place birds perched in the tree. Harrison reminded me of one of those gray-headed birds, and I was one of those small brown-yard birds. Only we couldn't fly off. That's what I kept thinking. If someone caught sight of us, we'd have nowhere to go. We'd be stuck in this here tree. Nothing but a pair of helpless birds without wings. You think they're going to come after us? I asked Harrison. Maybe so, Harrison answered, leaning his head back against the trunk. They going to bring dogs? Maybe so. That onion smell cover where we walked? I already told you that, Samuel. Onions and maybe a good old rain. I glanced up at the flecks of gray morning sky showing between the leaves. It felt like rain, but no rain had fallen yet, and I remembered that my feet had sunk into the soft earth in more than a few places as we crossed the field. You think this tree's gonna keep us hid from them dogs? I asked, running my hand along the knotted bark. If they go around looking for us, it will, Harrison answered. What if they find us? What's gonna happen? Harrison's eyes snapped open, and he gave me the meanest stare. Now, you be quiet, child, and you get some rest, 'cause we got another long run ahead of us. I don't want to hear no more of your talking. I kept quiet. But the questions were still running back and forth in my head. What if I had left footprints in the field? What if Master hired dogs to track us down? What if it didn't rain? What if they found us sitting right here? What if they shot us down? As if we were nothing but a pair of foolish wild birds. I looked up at the sky and tried to make it rain. Rain, rain, rain. I wished as hard as I could. Lord, make it rain. But then a sound interrupted my wishing. Samuel! A voice called sharply in the distance. Samuel! Heart pounding, I closed my eyes and leaned back against the cold trunk of the tree. I knew whose voice it was. They were already looking for us. Chapter 6. Still as a tree. Oh man, come out now. That was Cassius. He seemed to be riding along the line of the woods, looking in. I glanced over at Harrison, but his eyes were shut tight and his mouth was moving in silent talking. Prayer. Samuel! Where are you, Samuel? The snake knotted itself around my throat as Master Hackler's voice slithered through the woods looking for me. I squeezed tighter against the tree. It was hard to tell for sure, but the voices seemed to be coming to the edge of the wood, near the field, getting louder as they came closer. Then came a voice I wasn't expecting. Samuel! Lily's familiar voice called to me. Come on back now. They had brought Lily all the way from the kitchen to look for me. I swallowed hard, thinking about the trouble I had surely brought to her. She had always barreled in to save me, and now I had gone and done the most shameful thing anyone could do. I had run off. Samuel! Harrison! They were riding in our direction, because I caught a glimpse of the brown flank of Master's horse and the bay skin of the mule with Lily. I closed my eyes. I knew they were going to spot us, sure as anything, when they rode into the woods. And if I wanted to keep us from trouble, I knew I just had to call out to Lily to save us. I didn't know how she'd keep me and Harrison from being cowhided for what we had done, but I just knew There wasn't any way out of this trouble. We all must pay, Lily would tell me. Maybe Miss Catherine would take the rest of Lily's money and some of her saved up things as punishment. Or maybe Master Hackler would listen to Lily's talking because she had a way with him. She always did. Drawing in a deep breath, I waved my arms and started to holler Lily's name. Lily! I called out. But at that very moment, the loud crack of a rifle split the air. Lord have mercy, I heard Harrison whisper. In the silence after the gunshot, I pictured myself as still as a tree. I imagined that my arms and legs had turned into branches, and that my brown skin was as dark and cold as bark. 3 more shots rang out. A warm drop trickled down my face. I waited for the snapping of the underbreath as Master Hackler and Cassius made their way to our hiding place. I waited for them to catch hold of our ankles and pull us right out of the tree. Overhead, the sky rumbled, and suddenly wind moved through the woods. Beneath me, the tree limbs swayed. My heart pounded. What was happening? More drops fell in my arms, and the sky rumbled again. Hallelujah, I heard Harrison whisper. Lord, let it rain. And then rain came down. Hard. It fell harder and harder, as if Master had shot holes right in the sky. Big drops hissed to the ground around us, and finally the rain fell in drenching white sheets, heavy as wet muslin on a clothesline. Truth is, the rain saved us. When I squinted at the edge of the woods, Master Hackler and Lily and Cassius were gone. Harrison figured they hadn't seen us at all. Just trying to scare us, Harrison shouted above the noise of the rain. But them shots 'bout took away my last years I got left. He didn't say a word about me hollering for Lily, but I couldn't stop thinking about her sitting on the master's mule calling for me and Harrison. It made my insides hurt to picture it. Would Master take her back and cowhide her for letting us run off? What about Lily? I said. She gonna be all right? Lily be fine, Harrison answered, pulling down his slouched brimmed hat to keep off the rain. She's seen hard times before. She can take care of her own self. Lily know you running off with me? I reckon she saw I'd run off sometime, Harrison said. When the right time come, don't you go worrying about Lily. He tugged a hat out of his tow sack. It was one of Seth's hats. Forgot this in the barn, imagine that. Harrison grinned, holding it towards me. I shook my head and kept on. Why didn't she run off? Who? Lily. All Harrison would say is, you got to be like me and Lily to understand things like that. Then he closed his eyes, leaned back against the tree trunk, and flat out refused to talk about it anymore. All day we sat up there in that tree while it poured. My legs kept falling asleep, and the rain ran in rivers down the tree limbs and soaked me clear through. I'm cold, I said about 50 times. Be thankful you ain't dead, Harrison answered from underneath his hat. When we climbing down? I said about another 50 times. When I say we does, stop pesterin'. I thought about Lily working in Miss Catherine's warm, dry kitchen with the fire popping on the hearth. Lily's big arms would be pressing out the table full of dough, hands flying from the dough to the mound of flour and back like birds dusting their wings. What would she be making? A couple of meat pies, maybe? Or a Sunday pot of hens and dumplings? My insides rumbled with hunger. When I stood around too long watching Lily work, she would always press her lips together and give me one of her stares. You spoiled to a stink, she'd tell me. Get working. I looked nothing like Lily. She had dark, high cheekbones and deep creases around her mouth and eyes. I was the color of ginger cake. Just like your poor mama, she'd say. I got the skin of an old tough chestnut, and you a nice piece of warm ginger cake. Thinking about Lily made me sad, sad, sad inside. Don't let nothing happen to her, I whispered to the sky. She didn't do nothing wrong. But the sky sent rain splattering down even harder.